Hi James, welcome back to the podcast. How you doing?
Hi Mark, I'm good, thanks. Long time no chat on this.
It's been a while, hasn't it? A lot's changed actually, probably since we last spoke in terms of the energy, fuel bills,
crisis.
etc. So lots of new reasons, I guess, or better reasons to get into property, but lots of reasons that people might have to feel apprehensive about.
Yeah, and I think there's always reasons to get into property, and I've been in the industry for 11 years now, and times change, but the need for housing is always still there, and the need for additional income is always still there as well. Whenever we kind of seen you want to be investors, that's always the kind of the number one feature. But lots of reasons, and we obviously have just come off the back of a 3-day intensive weekend. And loads of students moving forwards with their property journey, but equally there's a lot that kind of not fail. I'm not going to call it fail at the first hurdle, but for whatever stutter at the first hurdle, let's call it that.
And that's why I wanted to speak to you, because possibly more than anyone I know, you're at the coalface of that point where we've all been at, where we're deciding whether or not to take that leap, as it were, and actually decide that we're going to take property investment and make it our profession and a big part of our future. You're with people holding their hand through that process. So it would be quite interesting to get your perspective on the common reasons that people don't invest in property. I guess, what are the blocks? Because we all have had them, and we all do still have them.
I mean, the fact that you said property isn't for them, for some people, property just is not for them. And I think they come along to an introductory training, and maybe they've listened to some podcasts, like the idea of it. And some people just go, you know what, this isn't for me. And that's absolutely fine. Property isn't going to be for everyone. And, there are other ways to create wealth. Property is just one avenue for that. So we don't sort of drum into anybody, you have to invest in property, because it wouldn't, if everyone did it, then it wouldn't be a viable business. And we make, we don't hide anything on our trainings. You are going to have to put the work in. It's not going to fall in your lap. You have to get out there and take action. And some people just genuinely think, right, I'm going to buy a house, and then I never have to go ever back and see that, or do anything, or lift a finger ever again to make £1,000 a month. And you kind of go, well, it's not quite that easy. So have a rethink. And I said that's absolutely fine. And people do come along and have that realization that, this isn't what I was expecting it to. Or they just came along with the intention of thinking, I just wanted to buy a house, and I still just want to buy a house. So I've got enough knowledge from this, and I'm going to crack on and buy that one house, and that's my pension, or that's a house for my kid for the future. So I said everyone comes along to the trainings with a different reason why they've attended and what they're there for. So I find that bit really interesting as well, kind of understanding the human psychology element of what are people coming along to look for.
Yeah. And is that a danger in itself, though, that there is the temptation that it's that whole thing, a little bit of knowledge is a dangerous thing, isn't it? Is that actually there's only so much you guys can cover in one day or whatever. We're never going to create property investors overnight.
We cram in a hell of a lot in 3 days, but as you say, it's not everything. It's far from everything. But I think we cover the basics, the foundations. We teach people how to run the numbers. We teach them how to find off market deals and make qualify letting agents and things like that. So if somebody did just want to go out and buy one property with their own savings, I feel that they'd be in a much better place to do that after a 3-day intensive than have doing that before, because there are always questions, ideas that are going to pop into their head that they're going to be able to have answered by an experienced investor, and just food for thought for them in terms of what they were maybe looking for as well. So even if you said just want to buy one or two, you would be okay, as long as you don't want to buy one or two in a really short space of time, because they're still typically in that kind of save up, buy a house mentality.
What else then? So what are the other common sort of
the age old, and it can be no matter what's going on in the world, whatever's happening, I haven't got the money to do it. And that's always a big one. And even when we have, because we cover raising money quite, throughout the weekend, but very early on, we kind of touch on it and explain that this is how the deals are funded. It's not about what's in your bank account. And people will hear it and they'll kind of understand that you raise money and that's how it works. But I think until you've done it, there's still the fear of, well, what if I can't? How is this going to work? Is anyone going to believe in me? And that kind of, it's a combination of lack of money and lack of self-belief that kind of stop people as well, because they're just thinking, no one's going to invest in me, therefore there's no point in me going any further with this.
I guess as well, there's the prospect of investing in your own education in the first place, as in, there's a chunky price tag attached to that, and I'm sure there are some people weighing up whether or not A, can they afford to do it, B, do they want to afford to do it, is that a wise investment, or you might fall back into that camp we just spoke about of, well, rather than spending X number of thousands on my education, I could put that down as my first deposit.
I mean, that was the amount that I paid for my training was the same equivalent profit as we made equity wise on our very first deal. But if I had said, right, I want that money back, or I need to pay back somebody that I've borrowed the money from, then we could have bought that, renovated it, sold it on, and then you've got your training for free from that point onwards. So a lot of people by the end of the 3 days go, I don't want to buy my own home. I've realized my own home's a liability now. I want to buy assets. Exactly. So they've kind of a change of mindset, a change of mentality as the weekend goes on.
I remember my experience of making that big step and deciding to invest in our training when we did that sort of 6-7 years ago. I was coming into it with let's say a black mark on my credit file, and all I got from the team at the time was, there are other ways of raising finance. You need to have a great power team around you. There'll be ways to sort it. And I'm like, really, this is quite big. But I did decide to take the plunge, and lo and behold, got a good broker on the case who made pretty light work of that, and was able to approach a lender that was able to take a view on my credit file and that sort of thing. And we were up and running, and off we go. So I can understand people until it happens. In some ways, you don't believe it. It's like we talk about angel investment, isn't it? People go, well, people really lend me tens of thousands of pounds. It's like,
and the whole, like, you can, I get emails from students, 6 months after their training going, that thing you were teaching us where you buy a house for free and you add value and you refinance it. It works. And you're like, yeah, I know it works because we do it.
Exactly.
But it is almost that, until you've seen it, until you've done it yourself, you can't always believe what you're being told. And I think that's your brain almost kind of going, well, it's a safety mechanism, isn't it? Kind of saying that, it might not work. So just be careful.
It's your brain, and it's maybe other people's brains as well, isn't it? Like, you must see people that they're surrounded by a bit of negativity towards the whole thing, or partners and that sort of thing.
We always ask, one of the first questions is, who hasn't told somebody close to them in their life that that they're here on a property training, but a good sort of 30% of hands normally go up, and people start giggling because they realize that, I'm not the only one that's been in that mentality. But we know that people of that mentality kind of, they often go back and they might speak to their partner, but nothing ever really gets done about it. It's kind of, you almost need to make that decision when you're in the fire.
In their eyes, they're trying to save us from making a mistake or getting into property when, as they perceive it, the property market is not in a great shape, or whatever it might be. They're trying to protect you, and we're all subject to that.
Correct. It certainly is protection. It's sometimes it's knowledge born out of lack of knowledge as well, or it's kind of misinformation. Because as we know, there's never the right time to buy property. There's never the wrong time to buy property, as long as you're doing it in the right way, and you've got systems for it. So
it must be really difficult for people at the moment. Like, I don't have a lot of money, but also I don't have a lot of money, so I need to get more. How do I?
It's that kind of vicious circle, isn't it? And I'll start when I've got some more disposable income, but until I need to create more income to have disposable income, and it's a really, and I think in this economic circle, you can really see the kind of rat race playing out, because people will say, well, I need to work harder in my job to get the pay rise, to be able to do the thing that I want to do, to be able to escape from it. But as soon as more income comes in, the cost of living is increasing again, and you're needing that money that comes in. So it can be really, really tough, and to get started and to have that disposable income. Because look, money does make money, but as we all know, it doesn't have to be yours. And I think again, that's the other thing. People come into a training and go, I want to do no money down deals, and we're kind of like, whoa, hold fire. There is no such thing as a deal that doesn't take a single penny, because even if you're wanting to source a deal on, you need to be compliant, and that costs some money. If you're wanting to do a rent to rent, you're going to need to pay for a month's deposit. You're going to need to be paying a month up front. You're going to need to be providing furniture or getting HMO license. So there will always be a cost associated with doing a deal, but it doesn't have to be yours.
What were your reservations? Do you remember?
Oh, mine were. It was expensive. That was the big one, and I just couldn't get my. I'd never spent that amount of money on anything ever before in my life.
The
So
training itself, you mean?
yeah, the training itself was
Yeah.
expensive, and I kind of thought,
Mm.
it's a lot of money. But
Mm.
then the person who I was having a chat with said, compared to what? Compared to having to work every single day, what price would you pay on not having to work
Mm.
every single day of the rest of your life for somebody else? And you kind of go, well, I'd probably put that figure at a lot higher than the cost of the training that was in front of me.
Yeah.
I had some self-belief challenges and issues as well. And,
Mm.
I had a wonderful trainer who I'm still in touch with. The trainers end up believing in you more than you believe in yourself,
Yeah.
because they've seen so many other people go through it and know that it can work, that you just need to, take their belief and ride with their belief until you've done it once. Because once you've done it once,
Yeah.
it's worked, and you've now got that cookie
Yeah.
cutter to go out and repeat and repeat and repeat. And that was certainly myself and Natalie. We really found that, because
Mm.
all the numbers of the deals that we were doing in the early days, they were all very similar. Kind of buying for between 40 and 55,000 pounds, and getting them revalued at between kind of 70 and 85,000 pounds. That was all. They were all very similar numbers. There's a lot to be said for starting with one strategy, and kind of really learning that strategy inside out, instead of trying to spread yourself too thin, because
Yeah.
it will make your life a lot easier, and it will give you far less headache, because you're never going to be going into a deal in the early stages, apart from maybe the first one, going, is this going to work?
Yeah. But that experience you had with the whole self-doubt thing is possibly one of the reasons why it is dangerous to think that just with a little bit of knowledge gained on, might be a couple of days of a training course or a YouTube video, or because I've read a book, that is the answer to me, making, life changing a difference in my life. Because the reality is, so I've spent some time with Assad recently, and
Yeah.
had exactly the same experience. So when you're in the room with Assad, inspirational guy, loads of content, loads of information, yeah, I've got this, this is amazing, I know exactly what I'm doing. And then you get home and you go, right, what do I do now?
Where's Assad? Where's Assad? Why can't he help me?
What's the first thing to do again?
Gaining the property knowledge is just half of the challenge, because if you've, as you've said there, if you've not got the right mindset, then that knowledge itself isn't going to do anything for you. You need to have the confidence to go out there and take action, and the kind of the self-belief that you can do it. And that comes with personal development as well. So before I'd been on a training, I'd never read a personal development book, didn't know they existed. You never stop growing, you never stop learning kind of new ideas, new themes. You go back and reread books that you've read maybe 2-3 years ago, and you're taking new ideas and concepts from them.
How good have you become at predicting who's going to go on and really smash it and do really big things? Can you sort of get a sense of people's mindset at the time?
You can get a sense, and and I think that boils down to attitude as well. That's why it's so important. And somebody that comes in with a positive attitude, and with the kind of the I can do this mentality, that isn't over cocky. I think there's a very fine line between confidence and arrogance.
I've worked with students, and I've worked with them for a while, where we've really struggled to make headway, and there's maybe been a bit of skepticism, and then suddenly, I don't know what clicked, but suddenly maybe they get a little bit of success, and the mindset suddenly changes, and then the momentum just suddenly kicks in, and suddenly they go on to smash it, and you think, wow, you have changed so much in that process.
The thing with property as well is there is a lot of work in the first instance, because you're starting to identify what is your strategy, what area you're going to be investing in, starting to build rapport with agents, starting to do direct to vendor leads in an area, and you can feel like you're putting in a hell of a lot of work, getting very little headway and results in the early stages. But it's because you need to take some time, and it's going to need a little bit of consistency before you start seeing the yeses start to drop. It's the picture, isn't it, the little miner digging for a diamond, and he gives up just as he's about to touch it.
Yeah,
it's the same with people investing in property. So many people will kind of give up before they've actually hit their success, but once they've got that first yes, we know from training people that they just come in like buses, and it's kind of like yes, 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 yes. And the estate agents, they've seen you deliver on one deal, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, we've got something else that might work for you. We've got something else that might work for you. And you start to sort of find a surplus of deals, whereas in the early stages it's normally like, why can't I get a deal? And you're doing the right things most of the time, but it's just time. You haven't let the time factor play into it, and it will happen, but you need to keep it up.
there's just as much value in being part of a like-minded community as from the education, the formal education side itself. They tend to have big drivers in common, like I want to get more time freedom, I want to do all. And when you start to see, if maybe you've been the black sheep in the family, and you're the one that's doing this radical property stuff, suddenly you're surrounded by a lot of other like-minded people. That can give you the confidence to grow within that.
I always thought it would be that people want to come along and, have £1 million in the bank and hundreds of properties and that kind of mentality. And very rarely does anyone write down anything kind of tangible, physical. It's all kind of about having more time, having more freedom, being able to help other people. And they're the kind of the key things. It's that kind of, there's almost a fear of success being kind of entwined in their fear of what could go wrong. What are the kind of potential challenges with this as well?
Yeah. So bringing this back to the here and now, because it's exceptional circumstances at the moment with energy prices, cost of living, inflation. The first thing we all tend to do, quite rightly, when times are tough, is we reduce the luxury expenditure and we retreat to our core, what we need to survive. But then on the flip side of that, the only way you're going to beat inflation, as it were, is to actually invest in inflation busting strategies.
Yeah, correct. You can't beat inflation by tightening your belt, because Netflix and Costa aren't going to make you a million. Cutting those out aren't going to make you a millionaire. And if you read any successful entrepreneur's book or read about their story, they'll always say, we ran into trouble, and the only way to beat trouble is to be expanding your way out of it.
It must be frustrating for you sometimes, knowing what this process can do for people and the way it can change their lives, to see people walk away and you're like, can't you see?
You kind of kick yourself, because you, as a trainer, you always put it back onto yourself and gone, what could have I done to have helped that person more? Yeah. What could have I done to have maybe opened their eyes and to given them that belief, to have, made them realize that this is something that they could do. So, you do pull it back on yourself sometimes and beat yourself up, kind of thinking, but then you've always got to remember, well, I've helped at least one person. I've helped hopefully more than just one person on a training event, but to make a massive change. And you've got to focus on those that you have helped and carry on helping them. And I love getting the the selfies of our students who have just got their keys, picked up their very first set of keys with a self in front of the property, and it kind of like, yes, that, because it has worked and we know it works, and it's nice to kind of see that success. And it does take time, it does take effort, but somebody was there to do it for us, and that's why we do it for other people.
Yeah, absolutely. Brilliant. Well, I knew you'd bring some unique insight into that. That's been really useful to get your perspective from being frontline and at that difficult time. And hopefully people that are listening to this, who maybe are considering whether or not property is a route they want to go down, that will have helped sort of challenge some of your perceptions and maybe mindset blockers a little bit. But also those people that have embarked on this route, that was a massive step that you've taken, but it is only just the first step. And now the action that you now take and the hard work and the graft you put into it is what's going to make the difference.
And the last thing, I guess, that there will be blocks left, right, and centre, and the best way to overcome that is surround yourself with other positive people and to trust your gut a lot of the time as well. That's always going to kind of lead you in the right way.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, James.
Really Thanks, Mark. See you soon.
Catch up with you soon. Take care.
Bye for now.